Hello again, my name is Doug Smith, and this is the 13 June 2014 edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. Our special guest today is Portsmouth Registrar of Voters, Jacquie Schultz. Jacquie, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Before we, this is a very fortuitous because we have a general election coming up in October. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of the office itself, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into this business.
Well, I grew up in Portsmouth. I'm a graduate of both Providence College and Portsmouth High School. The last position that I held was Director of Education for First Presbyterian Church in Newport. And let's see, my husband and I have raised 3 daughters here who have graduated from Portsmouth High School, and the youngest just graduated this month in June.
And they're all doing well, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Why did you just decide to get into the canvassing business? Or was it just sound like an interesting opportunity, I guess?
It wasn't something that I thought about. I had served as a temporary assistant to Madeline Pensack, who was the original of
Yes.
the voter registrar. And when she said that she was going to retire,
Yeah.
I remembered how much fun and how challenging the office was. And so I applied.
Okay, great. Yeah, Madeline was in here once. We put her through the grilling.
Yes.
And
She showed me the wounds.
oh, come on. I kept trying to get her to come back on, so we could make fun of her. No, not really, but because she was great. Mm-hmm. Okay, the canvassing office itself, you're in the town hall. How many people are in your office, and what generally do you do?
The canvassing office is kind of unique in the sense that we are run by a board of canvassers. There are 3 members, and they're bipartisan. It is Dick Carpenter, Jill Wilson, and Glenn Allen, and they are my board of canvassers, and I answer to them. And in our office, we work closely with the Secretary of State's office and the Board of Elections. The Secretary of State is charged with the responsibility of maintaining accurate voter registrations and lists, and with the ballots, making sure that the ballots are accurate and that they go to the right people. The Board of Elections is charged with conducting all of the elections. Candidate management in terms of their financial responsibilities and reporting. We set up the polls. We make sure that they're handicap accessible. We really run through that and work with them. So I work for a variety of people.
Do you end up actually counting the votes, or is it all done electronically somehow?
It's done electronically, but at the end of the night, we will be feeding certain
sheets into the machine.
And the Board of Elections will be feeding until 9 o'clock all of the mail ballots. That's when they get counted. Okay,
now the Board of Elections are those 3 folks you mentioned.
No, that's the Board of Canvassers. The Board of Elections is an organization of the state.
Okay, of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of the Board of Canvassers, are they elected or are they appointed? Or?
They're appointed by the Town Council for a 6-year term.
Okay, and how about your own position? Are you elected or appointed by?
I'm appointed by the Board of Canvassers.
By the Board of Canvassers, okay. Okay, so that's fairly clear what
so
you're...
it has to be a little bit removed. People who are directly involved with an election have to be removed from those who are elected. So
this will be the first election coming up, general election that you're running the show from. So.
Yes, sir.
So it should be a little bit different perspective.
Yes. So any problems?
Yeah. Well,
you know
they know who to contact. So I've been in there several times. Just come in to say hello every once in a while because you guys are there's no window or door.
Yeah, we're very accessible.
And I just come in to chat. But basically, what kind of services do you provide for people that come in or call in?
Oh dear, we've done a variety. Any kind of information that a voter may need, we will provide it for them. We can look up whatever they need. If they need to change their registration for any reason, we usually receive the information that to make the change. We are in charge of making sure candidates are accurately placed on a ballot and that all of their paperwork is in order,
Okay.
so that they are accurately placed on the ballot.
So, for example, if somebody moved into Portsmouth
Yes.
and they wanted to register for voting, they'd come down and fill out a form. Is that accessible online, that form, yet?
There are so many ways to register to vote.
Okay.
There's absolutely no
So
excuse.
there's no excuse for not
Absolutely
registering.
not. You can register at a variety of state organizations like the DMV, Department of Health Service, at the Board of Elections itself. It's available online. It's available in hard copy at our office, or if they wanted to, I would mail the application to them. It's not a problem.
Okay, so they can contact you if people have any information. Now, in our earlier discussion, it seems that the Portsmouth population is pretty much well registered to vote so far.
We have about 13,000 who are registered voters here.
Okay, and I think our population is, what, 17,000, something like that?
That's very good.
What are some of your biggest challenges, particularly as we lead up to, besides the dates? We'll get into the dates in a minute, but
Primarily, it's convincing the electorate that their vote really does matter. There's a sense of apathy. If you talk to people, they'll tell you, it really doesn't matter if I go.
Anyway.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't
all a
make a
done
difference.
deal. Yeah.
However, on the local front, it makes a tremendous difference. In fact, there's one member of our town council who's on the council, one vote. That's all it
By
took.
one vote.
By one vote.
Yeah. So one vote does make a difference.
It absolutely does. You can feel disconnected with the federal elections. I can see that. Rhode Island's
Yeah, I
very
think there
small.
is a sense of that.
Rhode Island's small. Everybody talks about California and Texas and Florida and Ohio and poor little Rhode Island. But at a local level, it makes a tremendous difference. And those are the people who you're dealing with directly,
Yeah.
who their decisions affect your life immediately.
So a big part, I would think, of your job leading up to this thing is just, one, encouraging everybody to register. That's, like, you probably have a lot of young adults that have reached, what age do you need to be, 18, is it?
No, actually now we have something called pre-registration. 16 and 17-year-olds can register at the DMV, or they can come into our office, and they are placed on a list that's called pending. And 30 days prior to their 18th birthday, they're immediately placed on our polls. We don't have to do anything for them. And the advantage to that is that if they turn 18 on November 4th, they can vote.
Yeah.
They just go to the polls. If they wait until they're 18 to register, they would have to wait the 30 days. And they wouldn't be eligible to vote.
Yeah, so do you all campaign or do any discussions with the schools on trying to encourage kids to...
I have done one so far. I've only been in the position for 6 months now. I went to the Aquidneck Island Christian Academy and convinced some of them, and they did register to vote.
How about Portsmouth High School? I wonder if they do that internally or...
I'm working on it.
Okay, good. Well, that's great. Anything we can do to help along those lines, too, we'd be happy to. What kind of information do you need from someone that registers? What kind of, for example, what kind of ID? You know, what do you need to see before you can register someone as a voter here?
I don't need to see anything. They provide the information to me. They will give me their name, their address, their birth date,
Okay.
and the Board of Election requires either a Rhode Island driver's license number or the last 4 digits of a Social Security number.
Okay, and that's it?
And that's it.
You don't have to prove
And
you're living
signature.
at a certain place or anything like that?
We trust you. You have to say
Yeah.
where you're living.
Well, my daughter recently came back from New Hampshire, and I know she went down to vote, and I told her, you know, make sure you have an envelope from the electric company or something showing where you're
That's at the polls.
at the polls.
At the polls, there will be voter ID, and that is going to be either a Rhode Island driver's license, a U.S. passport, any government-issued identification.
Like a military ID.
Military
something.
ID, a student ID from an educational institution, and let's see, a government-issued medical card, and a voter ID. And this is important. it's not the piece of paper that is sent to them from the canvassing office acknowledging their registration.
It's a separate ID card?
It is an identification card that has a photo on it.
Okay.
And if anyone does not have any of the identification that I've listed prior, call my office and we'll arrange with the Secretary of State's office to get voter IDs for our community. They will come.
Okay, they come to our town and
they will
set
come,
up a...
and if I have the names, I will be happy to notify, and I'll make sure that everyone knows.
Okay, so that's the law
That is,
going forward
that's
now?
the current law.
Some kind of picture ID?
No, only those 7 things.
Okay.
Those are the 7 that you can provide.
So primarily, probably every kid has at least a driver's license or wants one. So, and I think that other one was for folks that don't have driver's license anymore or whatever.
Well, even the DMV will give you an identification card if you don't have a license.
Without a license, even. Okay. Now, what can people do with your office by telephone? Are there
any of the questions that they have, we'll be happy to answer them. They cannot make any changes over the phone. They can't call me up and say, I've moved to Windstone Drive.
Okay.
I cannot do that. I must see it in writing
so
with their signature.
People have to come in with a form
or sign something.
Online or something? Okay. Now, if you were able to say to people before they come into your office to do some of this stuff, how can people prepare better for that? Do they need to bring, aside from these ID things, which would be the obvious, for example, if you did move, all you have to do is fill a form out saying I've moved, and here's my address, and you trust them?
No, we verify their signature.
Okay.
We have their
Well, yeah.
registration on file.
Okay,
so
so
when a change of address comes in, we verify all the identification information and the signature.
Okay. You also have a website.
Yes.
And it's on the town. Is it on the town website?
It's on the town.
And so, I don't know. I usually recommend that people go to the website to check and see what's required for any of these things, and your website probably answers a lot of the questions.
Not yet, but I would direct them to the Secretary of State's website.
Okay.
They are very, very explicit in everything that is necessary to come to the polls.
Okay. I imagine your website has a link, though, to go to that, right? So why duplicate it if it's already out there? One of the things that you usually need during elections are volunteers.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a list of the kinds of things you might need volunteers for?
Well, our poll workers, they're not volunteers, but in a sense they are, because they definitely don't do it for the money. They are the officials of the polling sites that they're at. They ensure that the election is fair and honest and that the right people are getting the right ballots. Most people don't realize that we have 4 different ballots in Portsmouth. It does matter if you live in Common Fence Point or if you live on Sandy Point Lane, because your ballot's not going to be the same.
Really? I didn't know that.
There are 4 different representative districts.
Okay.
And each of these districts has their own representative being elected. So, like Mr. Ariano or Dr. Ariano would not be on somebody else's
I see what you mean. Yeah, okay.
ballot because he's Senate District 11. Fortunately, that's all of Portsmouth. That does encompass all of Portsmouth.
But it doesn't have to be, yeah.
But it also encompasses some of Bristol as well.
Okay.
And then the other representatives represent other communities such as Tiverton, Little Compton, Middletown. So the ballots are different, and that's why it's important.
Now, typically, how many polling, or not volunteer, how many polling workers do you have during a general election?
The law is increasing, and there's close to 100 that are required. And these people are amazing. The ones that I have met so far, they spend 14-hour day, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the polls really don't close until 8 o'clock, and they're there preparing the polls in the morning, making sure that voters have the information that they need, that they're able to see the ballots prior to going into the voting booth. And they're just amazing
Keep
people.
everything on track.
They keep everything on track. They keep things going.
And what do they get paid for this?
They can get paid. It's not a whole lot of money, and it's posted. They get $25 to go to the training itself, which is a 3-hour training that the Board of Elections provides, and then they're paid.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's going to meet the minimum wage criteria that the state is just changing.
I have no idea, but it does require legislation to change, I believe. So.
Okay, but there's an opportunity there for example, teenagers, say over the age of 18, that are voter eligible to.
Actually, I can have 16 and 17-year-olds be poll workers.
Okay.
If they meet certain criteria, they need to be recommended by a teacher or a school official. They have to meet certain grade point averages.
Okay, I would think that'd be a good community service opportunity as well.
It would be wonderful, wonderful, and I think that it would be eye-opening. You can study civics forever.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
It really is. I have a degree in political science, and I didn't understand all of the little intricacies that go on to ensure that a voter is on that list and is accurately on the list and does have their vote counted. It's really astonishing. The lengths that the Secretary of State's office goes through to ensure that people who live out of the country, people who live in other states, that they get their ballot and that it can be counted.
Yeah. Well, that's probably one of the most important things we have as being Americans, is the right to vote, and we take it very seriously.
It's so crucial, and people don't realize that. And even in primaries, we're the only nation that really has primaries. We're the only ones that filter our ballot through the electoral process, and other people do it through intimidation, assassination, and all kinds of Asians. But
not the right way, I guess.
No, but the transfer of power, the peaceful transfer of power, is wonderful, and it is a gift that we really don't see. Yeah,
absolutely. I have a couple neighbors that that work in the polls, and they're in there for a really long day. I know that. Now, when do you start, and how do you recruit people to do that job?
I started in February.
Okay, so you sent letters out to.
I sent letters out to people who had done it in the past, and who might be interested or might be available for any of the elections coming up.
Okay.
And I am accepting new ones too, because a lot of people.
Okay. Do you need new polling workers?
Absolutely. Come see me.
Okay.
We'll give you an application.
So call or stop by the canvassing office. That's great. What other volunteer jobs are there out there for volunteers? I mean, as you say, these people, even though they're getting paid a small stipend, they're still volunteering a whole day of their time. What other volunteer?
Well, there are all kinds of ways that volunteers could help if they wanted to help set up polling sites or take them down, or even adopt a polling site. Bring these people who are giving their days cookies or
coffee or something. What a great idea.
Acknowledge that you appreciate what they're doing.
That's a great idea. We'll see if we can help do some of that. What about drivers, people who could drive folks that can't drive themselves to the polls? I mean, is that something that we should do or could do here? Or?
As a town, we don't, but I think it's wonderful. There are several organizations, the Senior Center, or
I would think
Masons,
the Rotary,
or
maybe the VFW and the American Legion guys. And
they would consider doing that. I think that would be a great service.
Well, I think the great thing is it gives the people who are housebound an opportunity to participate in this one thing that the United States has is kind of very
anyone
unique.
who cannot come to the polls can apply for a mail ballot, and we will send the ballot to their home.
By the way, how do those, there are ballots you have that you can fill out like a month ahead if you're traveling or you're not going to be in town. How does that work?
You have to come to my office for that.
Okay, and how far in advance can you do that?
They're available 21 days prior to the election itself.
Okay. And so people can actually fill their ballot out before they leave, and then
Yes, if you're not going to be available to go to the poll, you can come to my office at any time.
Yeah.
And actually, our hours are 9 to 4, but if you need me to stay for any length of time,
Wow, you sure you work for government? That does sound like a government
well,
thing.
people need the opportunity
Yeah.
to vote, and many people work 8 to 5.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
9 to
Well,
5 doesn't, 9 to 4 doesn't usually
that's
work.
great. I appreciate your dedication to this. You know, one of the things I talked to Joanne Moyer, the town clerk, about was preserving records. Now, presumably you must have canvassing records. Are they now part of the town clerk's? I'm thinking of the old, you know, going back. I mean, do you have old records and things like that?
Everything that I have is already in the Secretary of State system.
Okay, so
I
it's
don't have-
digitized or whatever.
I don't have any historical documents located in my office,
Okay.
but I do keep records of the processes that you go through. So,
Okay, now, are those things safeguarded in the event, for example, you get a major storm in the winter and part of the building is either flooded or damaged? I know that's a stretch perhaps, but it's happened before in the town hall.
yeah, and it has.
And I just wondered, are generally speaking, are most of your records duplicated somewhere else, like with the state perhaps?
The state really, everything that I have, the state has.
Okay, so in other words, you could recover the data from something like that.
And I have requirements that there are certain documents I have to destroy by a certain time. So,
Okay, I guess the other question, well, let's get to some dates, I guess, because we got all this stuff's coming up.
okay.
And you want to just walk through the dates coming up and
Okay.
what the deadlines are.
Right now, the declaration of candidacy will be June 23rd through the 25th. That's when the brave people who decide they want their names on the ballot will come forth. The party endorsements will come June 26th. And nomination papers will be available July 1st. So one of the things I would like to tell people who are going to be asked to sign these nomination papers, it would be helpful if you knew who your representative was, what representative district you are in, and be registered to vote. It's not a question of how many votes, how many signatures you get, it's how many valid signatures you get.
Okay.
So if you're not registered to vote, don't sign the papers. It's not going to work.
Okay, so if you want to be considered for an office, you come in and fill out the paperwork to declare your candidacy.
Yes.
Then you have to get so many nominations from public nominations. Is that how it works?
No, the party will endorse the candidates that they want on their ticket, and then they're issued nomination papers, which require signatures from the electorate.
Okay. Are there any number, a minimum?
Right now, it's 50 because we're a town. Cities
Okay.
require more signatures.
Okay. What about like the independent folks?
Then they require 50 as well. They will receive nomination papers as well.
Okay. So if somebody files, they take the case up and they go out and get 50 signatures for this person who wants to be a candidate, and then he goes. Then he's on the ballot.
Yeah.
Presumably.
Well, then we give his name to the Secretary of State, and he gets all of the information that he needs. And yes.
Okay. And so all of that's got to be done by July 11th. I assume everything's turned in.
Everything's turned into me, and that's
then you turn it into the state.
and that's when we check all those wonderful signatures, and we find out which ones are valid and which ones aren't.
Okay.
That's why please register to vote before
Yeah.
you sign anything.
And please make sure that the person is registered to vote.
And that it's in your area. For example, if you go to Middletown, get out of Shaw's and somebody
Sure, it's gotta
says,
be in the area
please
the guys-
sign this,
Yeah.
and if you're not a registered voter in
Yeah, you-
Middletown, it's not going to count.
Okay, so you can't stand there at Clements checkout thing and get signatures generically. Yeah.
Not generically, but
Okay.
as long as they're residents and registered, it's fine.
Okay, so that's for the candidates, and I would assume that a candidate already kind of knows, can find out all the process here. What about voters? What are some key dates there? What's coming up?
They need to be registered to vote by August 10th if they want to vote in the primary.
Okay.
And the mail ballots applications are online right now, so if they can get those to me as soon as possible, we can ensure that their ballots are sent to them where they need them.
Okay, what if you you may have registered years ago and you think you're registered? How can they check? How can they just call up and say, "Am I registered to vote?" And, okay. And the last day to register is August 10th?
Yes, for the primary.
Okay. And then the vote the election takes place on September 9th.
Yes, that will be held then, Tuesday, September 9th.
So those are the key dates. I think we've had some of them up here on the screen. If anybody has any questions about these or any of the other procedural issues, they can certainly contact you.
Right, and on July 11th, I'm having a voter information night at the Portsmouth Library.
Okay.
At that time, I will try and bring, I'll make sure that I bring a voter list. If people want to stop by and check whatever they want, I'll have registrations there and discuss any questions somebody may have about poll workers or the process.
What time is that?
5 to 6.
5 to 6
July 16th. It's a Monday evening.
16th?
Yes.
16 July, Monday, Portsmouth Library. Yeah, one of the questions that came up was when you're going through the process to vote. Why does somebody call your name out and loudly? They say your name. Is that because in case there's another Doug Smith over there that's the real Doug Smith?
Well, there are a lot of duplicate names, but many instances the parties will have a checker who is at the polls. I have a little table for them. They can sit down, and they are doing their own counts.
Okay.
And they're monitoring what goes on.
So that's what they're doing in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're ensuring that people hear the names and they know how many votes are being cast.
There are restrictions, I think, on how close parties or candidates or, campaigns can be. 50 feet?
Yep.
Okay. So that's 50 feet of the polls. And that's why a lot of them are right outside, I guess, when you try to get in there and go through that. Okay, well, this is an important election. As you indicated earlier, we do have a fairly good electorate turnout on general elections. And what would you expect we get that? What did we get last time? Over 70%, perhaps?
75%.
And that's pretty good, I think. If you have 13,000 out of 17,000 population, that's a pretty good number. But let's exceed that this time if we can. Let's try to get everybody out to vote.
I'll do my part.
Okay, that's great. Well, everybody else needs to do their part. Listen, thank you very much for coming on the show today, and we'll keep an eye on this as we go forward. As we get to the key things coming up, let us know, and we'll try to put them out on this program just to remind people of the specific dates and things. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about your vote or when the voting is taking place, when the deadlines are, please contact Jackie. She's the person, and she's got all the answers. Thank you very much. Doug Smith signing off. See you next time.